YouTube page. It's, yeah, Shiloh's YouTube page, which should be the same place that you watch church on Sundays. All right. Okay, bye.
May we bow our heads, please, in a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to host a candidates forum and to play a role in the electoral process for this community. We invoke your presence in tonight's activities, that it may prove to be helpful in informing us about those who seek to serve as 19th Judicial Court Judge. We honor the decision of these candidates. Each of them have put themselves before the community seeking public service, and we ask your blessings upon them individually and our city parish collectively. We thank you for those who have come to share or have tuned in via social media. Give us eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts to feel, and minds to discern, so that they may make the most informed decision possible with their vote. Decisions that will produce a better, more equitable, more unified community. Let us spend this time in the wisest manner possible. In the name of Jesus, who is our Christ, we pray. Amen. Amen. Good evening. I'm Fred Jeff Smith, pastor of Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church and a member of Prophetic Voices, a coalition of concerned clergy intent on helping to inform and empower the citizens of East Baton Rouge Parish. To that end, we organized this forum. Each announced candidate for Division O of the 19th JDC was contacted and invited to participate in this forum, and we're grateful for those who accepted our invitation. We're also thankful to the many volunteers who have stepped up and helped us in facilitating this forum. Without their contribution, this activity would not be possible. Prophetic Voices is not supported or beholden to any political party or any other civic or private group, financially or in any other way. We're clergy who have come together to collectively make our voices heard on matters that affect our community. It is a vital part of our ministry to facilitate intelligent and specific dialogue that may be used to better inform us of the issues. We represent several churches and several thousand voters spread throughout East Baton Rouge Parish. Early voting begins on Saturday, September 27th, and will continue through October 3rd. Thus, tonight's forum may be one of the last chances for these candidates to speak directly with the public before votes are cast. We hope that we will listen closely to what each candidate has to say about their vision of our future. Again, we welcome you to Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, and I now turn you over to our moderators, Quentin Anthony and Johnny Jones.
Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Judicial Forum hosted by Prophetic Voices here at the historic Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, led by Pastor Fred Jeff Smith, who you just heard from. My name is Quentin Anthony Anderson, founder and editor of the Bayou Progressive and graduate of Louisiana State University's Law Center class of 2013. I am honored to serve as tonight's forum moderator. Tonight, we are pleased to have the following judicial candidates joining us for what promises to be an insightful and informative conversation. We have Dele Adebamaji, Vicki Jones, and Vernon Thomas. We may have an additional candidate, and when that candidate arrives, that candidate will be able to participate in the questioning. Thank you to all of our candidates who are here and to all of you in attendance in the audience for being here as well. This forum is focused on the 19th Judicial District, one of the most important courts in Louisiana. The judges elected to the 19th JDC oversee serious criminal cases, major civil disputes, and specialty programs like Recovery Court, Veterans Court, and Reentry Court. Their decisions have a direct impact on public safety, fairness, and community trust in our justice system. Our goal tonight is to give voters a clearer sense of not only who these candidates are, but how they would approach the responsibilities of being a district judge. We'll begin with opening statements, then move into questions across several categories, and then close with final remarks. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for their opening statement. For each question, candidates will have 1 minute and 20 seconds to respond. After each answer, the other candidates will have 30 seconds for rebuttal or clarification if they so choose to use it. At the end, each candidate will be given 1 minute and 30 seconds for a closing statement. Time limits will be enforced to ensure fairness and balance. Time limits will be enforced to ensure fairness and balance. The order of responses will rotate, so each candidate has an equal chance to go first. But in order to get started with our opening statements, we will start with Mr. Adebamaji.
You did good.
I try my best.
You tried. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dele Adebamiji. I was born in Africa, Nigeria to be specific, and I'm from the Yoruba tribe, which I'm very proud of. God transplanted me to America, and I've been here for 40 years. I have 4 girls and 1 boy. The boy is no longer, but the girls are here doing well. I've been practicing law in Louisiana for over 32 years now. I do criminal cases, and I do civil cases. And I practice also in federal court, state court, and all the way to city court. I've taken a case from the beginning all the way to the United States Supreme Court. So I'm well qualified, and what I'm asking the voters to do is to realize that from day one, I do not need to be trained. The training wheels have been taken off. I'm ready to get to work.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
I'll let the applause dissipate for a second. My name is Vernon Wesley Thomas, son of Vernon Palmer Thomas and Sarah Moody Thomas, grandson of Coach Horace Wesley Moody Sr. and Carolyn Moody, and I'm running for judge here in the 19th JDC. And I feel it's important for me to announce my lineage because you need to know who I am, but also whose I am. My platform is very simple. It's FACE, fairness, accountability, compassion, and efficiency. So what is fairness? Fairness is treating everyone with equity, also ensuring that we understand that everybody cannot be treated with the same glove. What is accountability? Understanding that victims and plaintiffs come first and that actions have consequences. What is compassion? And this is the one that I lean on. We must treat everyone with dignity and respect. And what is efficiency? I will use an acute discipline to ensure that the backups in the docket are moved very, very quickly so that people can get the justice that they deserve. I've been a prosecutor, I've been a public defender, I've been in private defense, I've done successions, wills, trusts, and I've clerked for 2 criminal district court judges, both here in Baton Rouge and in New Orleans. And with a 360-degree viewpoint on justice, I believe that I'm the individual that on October 11th, you can be comfortable and breathe a sigh of relief knowing that you've elected the right person. Vernon Wesley Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Ms. Jones.
Yes. My name is Vicki Jones, and I am originally from Texas. I came to Louisiana when I went to law school in 1989, and I grew to love this city and the people in it. I have practiced law for the last 33 years. I'm a proud graduate of LSU Law School, and I'm currently an even prouder adjunct professor at the Southern University Law Center. I have practiced law on both sides. I've been a prosecutor and a defense attorney. I've handled civil cases both for plaintiffs and for defendants. So I have a wealth of experience in the court that I am seeking this seat for. Most of my practice has been in the 19th JDC. I've had over 1,200 cases there throughout my career. In addition to the work that I've done as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, I've also served as an adjunct administrative law judge for a short period of time. My philosophy and why I've chosen to run for judge at this time mainly relies on the fact that I've grown through my practice to learn that we need to protect people's rights, maintain public trust, and also to resolve disputes with neutrality and with transparency. So my goal is that everyone who walks into my court walk out. They may not like what I've done, but they will feel like they've been treated fairly with dignity and respect.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Our first set of questions focuses on basic judicial knowledge, the role of the court in judicial philosophy. Our first question will be directed to Ms. Vicki Jones. And the first question is, what are the key differences between the district court and the Baton Rouge City Court?
Oh, having been a prosecutor in city court deals mainly with misdemeanors and first and second offense DWIs. And district court, on the other hand, is where civil cases are handled and criminal cases, primarily felony criminal cases, civil matters, and they also involve any suit against the state of Louisiana is going to be handled in Baton Rouge in the 19th JDC.
Okay. Mr. Thomas.
And one other thing, in city court, there are no juries. Although there are jury boxes in city court, there are no jury trials in city court.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Mr. Thomas.
I think people need to understand that the difference oftentimes can be who arrests you in a certain situation. So if you're arrested by Baton Rouge City Police, you will go to Baton Rouge City Court, and typically your citation will have that on there. Any other law enforcement agency will typically go to the 19th Judicial District Court. And so the plethora of cases, both criminal and civil, is a bit more complex in the 19th JDC, as you will see curatorships, you will see successions, you will see intellectual property, but also in the 19th JDC, the family court is actually housed there, which also is its own entity in and of itself with its own clerk of court. So oftentimes people are asking, hey, what floor am I on? And so your citation will have that as well, and what arresting agency actually, to a lack of a better extent or lack of a better term, arrested you will actually tell where you're supposed to go. And I think people get confused about that sometimes.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Adebamaji.
Well, city court is a court of limited jurisdiction. When I say limited jurisdiction, I mean misdemeanors, like, you stole a pack of cigarettes, you stole meat lunch from the store, those minor things, or you stole clothes from the store. That's what city court does. And as it was stated before, city court does not have any jury trial. The judge decides what happens to you. And the maximum sentence you can always receive in city court is nothing beyond six months. But in district court is a court of unlimited jurisdiction. You can try anything in district court. All those misdemeanors, they can be tried in district court, and all the felonies, they can be tried in district court. And district court is where you have the criminal cases like murder, rape, then that's where you make the law. And another difference between the two of them is that the judges have to sit over all these cases, which the city court does not have to sit over. So the difference between city court and district court is, number one, the jury trial. Number two, the grade of offenses that happens in both courts.
Thank you. Our next question. The 19th JDC is one of the busiest trial courts in Louisiana. What do you individually see as the most important responsibility of a judge in this district? We will start with Mr. Adebamaji.
Well, what I see in the system is that I think the district court sometimes get overwhelmed by the number of cases that have been coming to the district court. And if you've practiced in the district court for as long as I have done, you would have seen a lot of things as it goes on. In district court, we can say all we want about them moving the docket, but the number of cases that each judge handle is quite extensive. Now we do have what they call commissioners in the district court. It's my belief and it's my opinion that they should allow these commissioners to take the misdemeanor cases off of these judges in district court. If this commissioner can take all these misdemeanors, all those minor cases off of the district court, it will loosen the judges up for cases that that require jury and that require times to deal with. In federal court, that's what the magistrate judges do. They take all those little things off of the judges so that their docket can be well manageable. I think the district court can borrow from that system also.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
Yes. The most important things that, for me, as a judge in district court, is integrity and fairness. You know, I think that all grades of offense should be treated the same. I mean, whether you have a misdemeanor, it is important in your life. And the decisions that I will make as a judge not only impact you, they impact a victim, they impact families of both. So in deciding cases, I have to be sure that I am following the law and applying it to the facts that are put before me. And as I said before, I want everybody who comes into my courtroom to feel like they have been treated with dignity and respect, regardless of who their attorneys are, regardless of who their family members are. Everybody gets the same treatment because you are a citizen of this city. I've been elected to represent the entire city, not just those with wealth, not just those that are poor. One of the things that I want to address in my court is treating people individually. Mental health is a big thing in our parish now, and I think judges need to pay particular attention to that and treat each case holistically as opposed to just looking at the charge. We need to look at the person holistically.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
I'm going to take a bit of a different approach because I believe that the overall role of judges in the 19th JDC is to not only ensure public safety, but to also protect the process. Typically, when an individual is arrested, and I'm going to use a criminal scenario here because that's the one a lot of people see as the front-facing issue when they come to the courts. And most times, a judge is the first elected official most people will come across. So the first 4 questions that you're probably going to ask are, 1, what did he do? Allegedly. Understanding that the presumption of innocence is the main thing that I believe everyone should hold fast to when they become embattled in the criminal justice system. 2, how much is bail? With bail being the dollar amount and bond being the amount or the collateral used to secure an individual's release, with bail not meaning to be punitive. Again, can you hire a competent private counsel? If not, is the public defender in that section competent for those types of cases? And then, is the judge fair? And a judge not only has to treat everything with a gradation, but must also protect the process, not only for the victims, but also for the defendants.
Thank you. A couple more quasi-trivia questions, and then we'll get into the substance. To all of you, what is a state-specific jurisdiction for the 19th JDC? And we'll start with you, Mr. Thomas.
A state-specific jurisdiction would be an AG case where someone would sue the state of Louisiana. Those types of cases are heard in the 19th JDC. Those are state-specific.
Ms. Jones.
When I think of state-specific, I'm thinking where the state is actually a party. That's typically criminal cases. Criminal cases are brought by the state against an individual.
Thank you. Mr. Adebayo.
Well, cases against the state can be handled in the 19th JDC, and crimes that are of violent natures can also be handled in the 19th JDC.
Thank you. And we'll do the next question, starting with you, Mr. Adebayo. Can you explain to our viewers and to voters what the role of the Commissioner's Court is at the 19th JDC?
Well, the role of the Commissioner's Court in the 19th JDC is number 1, they handle all the foreclosures that you see. So whenever you have a foreclosure against your house, that's one of the major aspects that the Commissioners handle. And also, they also handle cases on criminal nature, which is not trial, but when you have a post-verdict judgment, which they review all those sentences which have been, when a prisoner files a suit in the court, the commissioners are the ones who go through those cases. And now they're setting bonds. The commissioner set bonds. If you commit a crime, and the commissioner can be assigned to setting the bonds, but they cannot try any cases, but they can set the bond. And then if you have domestic violence right now, the commissioner will be the one to tackle those domestic violence as of this time.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, would you have anything to add?
Well, the applications for post-conviction relief are also heard by the commissioners. They have a very, very hefty role. They are the ones that deal with all the prisoner suits, as well as hearing what I believe he was alluding to, the 313 or the Gwen's Law hearings that domestic violence defendants have to determine whether or not they're going to be held without bond pending trial.
And Ms. Jones?
That's correct. And the only thing that I think that was left off is a lot of the administrative work that's done by the commissioners, and that's to assist the court. With the post-conviction relief, that is where all of those cases go. They start with the commissioner does the review of the case, and they're the ones that issue the opinion. Evictions are sometimes also handled by the commissioners, but commissioners are strictly that and not judges. And a lot of people think that when they go before the commissioners that they're actually going before a judge. All of our judges are elected by the people. Commissioners are appointed by the court.
Thank you. And another question that sort of fits within judicial knowledge, but also starts to move into ideology as well. Judges must apply the law as written, even if they may disagree with it. Can you share an example from your career where you had to set aside personal views to uphold the law? And we will start with you, Ms. Jones.
I guess in my career as an attorney, my job is not to uphold the law. My job is to represent my client. The judge is the one who actually upholds the law. So I've had to set aside my personal opinion on a lot of cases. I do a lot of family cases, and in those, I can't substitute my personal opinions or my personal beliefs when I'm representing my clients, because my job is to represent them to the best of my ability. When I was a prosecutor, I had to set aside a lot of my beliefs. We had people who have come in who have a number of offenses. Well, I still have to address those while considering the circumstances. As a prosecutor, I had discretion. And so I had to use that discretion in who to prosecute and not, and how to prosecute them, while still upholding the law as it is written.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
When I was a prosecutor in the military with the 95th Civil Affairs Brigade, my job was to prosecute sex crimes. And there were many horrible things that I saw with regard to the discovery process as a result of that job that made me very, very uncomfortable with the defendant or the accused in that case. Still, I had a duty to turn over what we call disclosures of evidence and ensure that Brady or anything that was exculpatory to that particular accused was turned over. I can also say in my time as a defense attorney that I've had to learn how to operate in a vacuum. And when I mean operate in a vacuum, that means in spite of what a police report says, in spite of what I may feel about a particular defendant, that individual is entitled to a fair, competent, and just representation just as much as anybody else that I feel may or may not have done something. And when I talk about making sure that I am operating within the bounds of the law, there's quite a bit of case law that says that an individual is entitled to a fair and earnest and competent representation, and I don't deviate from that, no matter how my personal feelings are.
Thank you. Mr. Adebameji.
When I sign my name to a petition, or if I sign my name to any motion, that name means a lot to me. So I do my best to make sure that whoever I'm representing, notwithstanding if you have the money or not, that you will get the best representation you can seek for in Baton Rouge or anywhere I might be representing anybody. Because the Bible says you do all things as you're doing it unto the Lord. So that's one of the mottos that drives me. So I don't have the ability to judge anybody. I don't like rapists, but I represent them. I don't like burglars because I've been burglarized before, but I represent them. But, because of my faith, I just have to represent you to the best of my ability and make sure that you do not suffer. Because they said, you are innocent until proven guilty. So I do not have much discretion to forgive anybody or do any. Only the judges have those discretion to carry out those kind of things. But for me, it is to represent my client to the best of my ability.
Okay. And a follow-up question to that, and we'll start with you, Mr. Thomas. How should voters and how should the broader community judge how well a judge is doing? How should voters judge the quality of a job that a judge is doing?
For everyone, it's going to be different. For an individual mother or father or family that's had somebody embattled in the criminal justice system, it would be how quickly their cases move through the docket. For a victim of a violent crime or someone who's been hurt or offended, and they're on the other side of it, it is whether or not justice is served. And so I think when you look at it from the lens of the individual, you can never know how someone is judging that particular courtroom. However, when you sit back and you take time to analyze a balance, and you see this judge is being fair with this judge is being fair on that end, and that victims and defendants and the process is being respected, that's how I believe you can judge fairly whether or not a judge is doing a good job or not. It's all about balance.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Adebamji.
Well, you know, it is very difficult for the public to judge how a judge is performing because sometimes we call it public opinion. Sometimes you try all this thing in the newspaper. I've always believed that only 3 people knows what happened in a case: the defendant, the alleged victim, and God. So if you take all those 3 into perspective, you will see that if an outsider wants to judge what the judge is doing, number one, you may not be a lawyer. Maybe the judge is applying the law, and the law seems to look, how can I say, maybe too harsh. But that's what the judge has to do. So you will judge him that he has no mercy, that is not, and sometimes maybe the judgment is for the judge to use his discretion. And he's saying, oh, I think this guy can be rehabilitated. Okay, don't let me throw him away. Let me give him another chance. The public will say, hey, why are you doing that? You've been soft on crime. So, it's a catch-22 for a judge. It's either he does it and he gets hammered, he didn't do it, he gets hammered. So the only thing a judge can do is just go ahead and do according to what the law says and just wait for the consequences.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
Right. I guess my approach to that question is a little bit different, because if you come into the courtroom, what you're looking for is a judge who is, number one, on time. That's the first thing that you're going to look for, and that they're prepared. It's important, even as an attorney, being on the other side, for a judge to know the case. Not just hear it for the first time when you come into the courtroom. You want that judge to be prepared. You want the judge to know the law as it relates to the cases that are before them. And those are the things that I think that, when people come to court, most of the things that they say about court is they don't understand what's going on. So judges, I think, need to be a little bit more explanatory about how the process works. So if you have a defendant that comes up, rather than just saying, okay, are you pleading guilty or innocent, let's explain to him why that's important at that stage. Let's talk about, this is your arraignment, and this is your opportunity to do this, that, or the other. So I think a lot, judges judge me by how much I explain, how well I am versed in the law, how well I'm prepared on those cases.
Thank you. And let's 30 seconds for an additional follow-up, because I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper on this. If you are elected and then you come before the voters for re-election, what would you point to as the reasons why you should be re-elected?
I'll start. It's pretty much the same thing that I was saying before. We will all be up for re-election next year in October of 2026. All 15 judges will be up for re-election. And I think for voters to be knowledgeable about the attorneys, knowledgeable about the courts, be knowledgeable about the judge, look at their record, look at how well they've done. I always encourage people, come sit in a courtroom. If you ever wonder how the judicial process works, you can go in any courtroom. You don't have to be a defendant. You don't have to be a victim. Courts are open. There's public forums. So if you want to know how your judges are doing, sit in their courtrooms and keep that in mind when it's time for re-election.
Mr. Thomas.
I think the biggest thing is ensuring that the public understands that whoever winds up getting this seat is going to be signing on for a marathon. And it's going to be a marathon of not only just doing the job and doing the job correctly and doing the job earnestly and with integrity, but also campaigning, because you have to understand that the people out there want to know that their particular judge is accessible and is transparent. And is not above having, as I said once before, someone in the public or in the community give them the rod of correction when they're not doing things right. And you have to be able to not only humble yourself, but understand that these are people whose lives you're affecting.
Thank you. Mr. Adebamji.
Practically, I believe that, experience is the best teacher. You can't teach experience. If you've been involved in the practice of law for such a period of time, and you are a judge, you should be able to apply those experiences in there. Because there are times that, like the Bible said, they say the devil that is in the heart of the child, a rod will correct it. Some people need to be locked up. If you do that, and some people need to be corrected by giving them alternative sentencing, if the public knows that you do both right, you correct and you lock up when you need to, they will understand that you're a kind of judge that will apply the law as requested.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to the specialty courts, which I mentioned in my opening, and how innovation can improve access to justice. The 19th JDC oversees specialty courts like Recovery Court, Veterans Court, and Reentry Court. Which of these programs do you believe has been most effective, and where is there room for improvement? We'll start with you, Mr. Adebamaji.
Well, I think you forgot to mention one other specialty court that the 19th JDC has. That's the mental issue.
Yes.
They do have that specialty court, and that court has been in existence for like about 2 years now. So right now, I think the best court they have, or I can say where they have the best result, is the drug court, okay? Where if they find out that you have drug problem, instead of locking you up, okay, they send you to the drug court. And the drug court is just not for people who do drugs only. If you also have alcohol problem, you channel into that specialty court. And the Veterans Court came about almost the same time that the Mental Health Court came about. And the Veterans Court was set up just to help the veterans who have problems, because they do have different kind of problems. And but right now, the drug court is the best court right now so far because of the time it has been in existence and the kind of money and the counseling and all the things that they poured into it. But the mental health specialty court is catching up, because I think people do need that court very, very much.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
Yes. For me, the most important court now is the mental health court. It's the newest court, and I think what needs to be added are more resources for that court. Drug court has been in existence for quite some time now, and it's running pretty efficiently. And there's also domestic violence. The domestic violence court, I think, is critical because those cases should be handled differently than some of the other cases. I mean, those are special cases where you have to look at victims, you look at the defendants, and then you also have to balance those and to make sure that we are protecting the public. So as far as those courts are concerned, I think mental health probably needs more funding so that they will have more resources to offer to the offenders that come through that court. And so I think, if anything, that for the mental health court, I think we need to hire more professionals that can address those issues. Hire an individual that can go out and look at the resources that are available, so that as a judge, I will have those resources for sentencing purposes, for treatment purposes, and for rehabilitative purposes.
Thank you. And Mr. Thomas.
I think the best court right now is the Domestic Violence Intervention Court. And it was established as a pilot in April of 2024, and it builds on a 27-week program that allows offenders to have counseling, have round-robin discussions, understand through the Duluth model that there are identifications of characteristics of dominance and identification of past behavior. And in conjunction with the District Attorney's Office, probation and parole, licensed clinical therapists, it gives individuals as well as victims an understanding of how not to engage in that same conduct going forward and how not to become part of the recidivism rate. Now, the one that is near and dear to my heart is the Veterans Court, because I am a veteran, and that was started with a federal grant of about $700,000 back in 2012. I think an improvement there should be that there is an outreach with the VA to ensure that some of the individuals who are suffering as veterans from PTSD and run afoul of the criminal justice system have better access to jobs, better access to living quarters, and better access to upgrade their disability ratings.
Thank you. And now, as a direct follow-up to that, to just put you all in a hard position, since you guys just praised different specialty courts, if the budget forced hard choices, how would you decide which programs to prioritize? We'll start with you, Mr. Thomas.
You would have me start with the tough one right back. Okay, I got you. One, it's got to be the Domestic Violence Intervention Court, because oftentimes, both in city and in district court, you are seeing so many people that are victims of domestic violence, both men and women. And I think when you get to the heart of why that particular type of conduct occurs and reoccurs, you can strike a chord with individuals and hopefully stop it at the root. To be very, very clear, I believe reentry court also needs a little bit of additional funding as well, because that's on the back end of making sure that individuals can reenter society. And it is a 2-year-long program where individuals who are incarcerated in Louisiana State Penitentiary learn the skills that help them reintegrate themselves back into society, because we can't just throw everybody away once they go to the prison industrial complex.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jones.
For me, I think it's the mental health court. Domestic violence, a lot of domestic violence cases are handled in family court. So the mental health court, the only place that you're going to get the help that you need is in the 19 JDC. There's no aspect of the family court that deals specifically with mental health issues. So because that's the only place that you're going to be able to address those concerns, I think that we need to put more time, more money, more effort into that court, because that's the only place that you're going to get those resources. Second to that would be domestic violence. Although a lot of cases are handled in family court, domestic violence with the programs, it's the 56-week program where you go through, and that is looking at people and teaching them how to resolve disputes in another way, other than ways that they have actually chosen to do it at that point. So for the two, for me, it would be mental health and then domestic violence.
Mr. Adebamji.
Well, I believe all of them are very necessary, and I believe we should pay more attention to all of them. For domestic violence cases, normally when an offender commits domestic violence, not only the court can force the offender to spend his own money to get treatment outside, and they call it DVOP, which is a 27-week course. So if you talk about domestic violence, yeah, the court can make an individual go out and get the treatment or the lessons, quote, that they need. But for me, I will prioritize reentry court, because not only is reentry court for the drug addicts, it's also for those who are alcoholic and those who have problems with substance. We know what DWI is causing in our community. We know that DWI can ruin the life of families if you have an accident, if you do something because you're drunk. So, not only that, if you see most of these people under the bridge, and most of them, they're very smart, they're knowledgeable, but because they're fighting this demon of drug, they can't get over it. So I believe that reentry courtroom, it should be where more attention should be placed at this particular time.
Thank you. And as a follow-up to that, are there any areas where either you believe that there are specialty courts that are redundant, or where we could use additional specialty courts or other innovations at the 19th JDC? And we'll start with you, Ms. Jones.
I think because 19 JDC offers so many alternatives, we pretty much run the gamut. You have your drug court, you have domestic violence, you have the mental health, and you have those courts already. So I think that we should put more time and effort into improving those with innovative services for looking at the community to see how you can intertwine those. I would take the opportunity to look at those specialty courts and see how they relate to the community. And one of the things that I would like to do if I'm elected is to start a judicial advisory council. And that's going to be the way for the courts to stay in touch with the community. People also often complain and say that once judges are elected that we don't have access to them anymore, or that we forget what's going on in our communities. So for me, establishing a judicial advisory council, that's going to allow me and my colleagues to keep in touch with the community and know what is important to them.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
I'll put it very simply. We do have a lot of specialty courts, and I think only one would be an overlap, and that's the PTI and Recovery Court. But I think awareness is much more key here, because oftentimes people don't even realize that we have these specialty courts. And yes, we've become much more technologically savvy, and I know it's on the website, but still when people come down to the 19 JDC, they are blown away by just how big it is and just where everything is. And I think if we can make that information more readily accessible to the everyday individual, we can have more utilization of those programs as they are now.
Mr. Adebamji.
I don't believe any of those costs are redundant. I think they all serve their purposes and they all serve interest for the public interest. The only thing I would have loved the 19 JDC to consider is to say, when we talk about rehabilitating someone who committed petty crimes, non-violent crimes, if the 19 JDC can force those people, like those who go to the store, they're kleptomanic, they will steal things that they're not supposed to steal. If you ask them, they don't have a high school degree. Why can't we force them into vocational school? Why can't we say if you go to a vocational school, if you want to be a cosmetologist, be a cosmetologist. If you want to be a fashion designer, do something. Alternatively, instead of sending them to jail, we can force them to a vocational school. I think that would be one aspect I would have loved to encourage in the 19 JDC. Because most of these people, like I said before, they're very smart, they're very brilliant. I've had clients who are accused of crimes and they graduated from nursing school and they went to graduate school. I've had them gone to places and they will invite me to their graduation and I'll be pleased to go. So if we can rehabilitate all those petty thieves and all those misdemeanor defendants, I think we will do better.
Thank you. And in that same spirit of court innovations, judges have a wide discretion in sentencing. And in many cases, incarceration may not be the most effective response. What alternatives to jail do you believe are most effective in promoting accountability and reducing repeat offenses? And how would you apply them if elected to the 19th JDC? And we will start with you, Ms. Jones.
One of the things that I think that courts, although there is discretion in sentencing, that's only on some crimes. For misdemeanor offenses, I think courts and judges should look at alternative programs that I think when I first started practicing law and I would practice criminal law, judges would oftentimes have young offenders in particular go out and get their GED or have them enroll in trade schools, which is again why I said the judiciary must keep some contact with the community so that we know what resources are available to them. So for me, rehabilitation is always going to come first. With anybody that's a nonviolent offender, let's look at what we can do to get them on the right path. So that's where I would go.
Mr. Thomas.
I think we have to start delineating between crimes that are crimes of poverty and crimes that are crimes of enterprise. And when I say that, oftentimes we rush to sentencing, when oftentimes people's motivations may not necessarily be just the criminal element, it may be because of poverty. What I would do is I would have a partnership with the trade unions, with AFL-CIO, to ensure that individuals both coming home from prison and getting on probation have an opportunity to gain a trade that allows them to make money. Because if you're working a turnaround at the plant, you're not trying to come home and do something nefarious, you want to go to sleep. If you have the means to provide for yourself, you're less likely to engage and become a part of the recidivism rate.
Thank you. And Mr. Adebamji.
Well, when we talk about rehabilitation, the judges do have this discretion. I won't mention names, but there are some judges on the 19 JDC. They are very big on rehabilitation. Okay, that is if you commit crimes that are not violent in nature. What they want to do, the first question they ask you is, did you finish high school? Which high school did you graduate from? And if you say you did not finish that high school, they will make it part of your, coming back to court that you must have a GED degree. I think that's a kind of rehabilitation because now you have a GED degree and you can move from GED to a higher ground. So if you put on probation by the court, instead of locking everybody up, one glove doesn't fit all. We can't say because the law says you should send somebody to jail, but if the law gives you discretion also, that discretion should be used wisely by rehabilitating those who commit nonviolent crimes. And we know that those who committed nonviolent crimes, sometimes they may be doing it because they're going through difficulty or they're having a hard time. So rehabilitation is more, it will be encouraged for those kind of people rather than just locking them up.
Thank you. Our third category looks at the relationship between the courts and the broader Baton Rouge community under community engagement and public trust. Judges don't make policy, but they can build trust between the courts and the community. What role should a 19th JDC judge play in fostering public confidence in the justice system? And we'll start with you, Mr. Thomas.
I've said this before. I believe that some of the heart of the issue may be some of the laws that are placed on the books. And if elected, what I would do is I would create a program with the legislature so that judges are involved in the legislative process and have input on the types of laws and the sentences that are then executed as a result of our function. And I tell people oftentimes that being a judge, unlike some other political positions, is very reactionary. So we're reacting to laws that are placed on the books. And so I believe a partnership with the legislature can help be somewhat preemptive in that nature. Also, continuing to have your judges be available and transparent and open to the public regarding any decisions that they make. And they may not always be able to give you the answer that you want, but at the very least, they're giving you the communication that you need to know that they're doing their job and doing it as efficiently as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Adebamaji.
Well, you know, judges can make, they don't make the laws, okay? They interpret it and they enforce it, like I would say. So for a judge to go back to the community is not a bad idea, because I know that the judges, there are some of them who go to the schools, they talk to the children, they give them advice, that's giving back into your community. And they let them know that, you know, you can become somebody. And also, these judges, as we see them, some of them, they go to the legislator and they will be witnesses if there is a case that's going on. For example, because of the way the map was drawn in this election, we have some judges who went to the legislator to say, hey, this is not a good thing. And they contributed their time and their money and their effort to fight those things, to right the wrongs. That's giving back to your community. And most of them, they always encourage children from schools to come into their courtroom, sit down and see how the courtroom is going. That's community involvement. So I believe that judges can contribute to the community by giving themselves to the services of the community.
Thank you. And Ms. Jones.
For me, the way to build back public confidence in the court is accountability and transparency. You know, the one thing that I've seen along this trail is that people have lost the confidence in the court because they don't see that. They don't see judges being held accountable for, you know, decisions that they've made. They don't see transparency with the judges. In addition to that, we have to, our community wants to see fairness. Our community wants to see that we are being treated like everybody else. I mean, and I say we because I'm a part of the community. So most of the people that I've talked to, they say that there's such a disparity in how offenders are treated depending on what their socioeconomic background is, what their race is. So as a community, we want to see fairness more than anything else. And that's going to be consistencies in bail. We want to see, you know, bail throughout where we have consistent bails. And I guess that would be, we'd have a model for that. So commissioners would not have as much discretion in setting those bails. And then you want fair sentencing. I mean, those are the two things that I have heard in the community the most complaints about. So I think we should also have consistency in that area so that we can build back that public trust.
Thank you. And as a piggyback off of Ms. Jones's comment about bail, what do you believe the role of cash bail plays in reducing crime and in addressing your cases at the court? We'll start with you, Mr. Adebamaji.
Well, cash bail, for those who can afford it, you know, allow some people to get out of jail. If you have the money to bail yourself out, you can. You know, for me, what I've seen in my 32 years of practice is that those judges, they tend to make sure that they do not violate the alleged defendant's rights. So they have their within the 3 days of arrest, you know, they make sure that they get bond set. But at this particular time, in the 19th JDC, the bond is being set by the commissioners. So the commissioners decide how much the bond is going to be. But in city court, I believe the judges still set the bonds. And cash bond is one of the ways that the law allows for you to get out of jail. If you can't do cash bond, you can do property bond. But some judges are very nice. They will allow you to mix both of them, both cash and then property bond. And they do that because they don't want you to languish in jail. So these judges, they work very hard, a lot of them. So I can tell you that cash bond has helped some people to get out of jail so they don't lose their job and so that their family do not suffer. And I think I support the cash bond issue also.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
So if I'm hearing the call of your question correctly, because I know sometimes we kind of go off topic a bit, you're asking me what the role of cash bail is,
Yeah.
correct? And so the role of cash bail essentially is to secure your return to court. That's it. It's not meant to be punitive. Now, cash bail also can be used and utilized as a means of public safety. So for example, as I talked about gradation earlier, you're not going to set a cash bail for someone who's allegedly stealing from Walmart the same way you would a domestic violence alleged offender. And I keep saying allegedly because you're innocent until proven guilty. You're not going to treat or set a bail on a homicide the same way you would a drug case. And so when judges are looking to set bail, they are keeping the public safety as the first priority, understanding that you're looking at the individual's prior criminal history, you're looking at the alleged facts of the case, and you're not looking so much at the means of the individual as what has allegedly happened and doing a balancing test. So you have to ensure that, one, it's not being punitive. Two, if you have individuals that have minor offenses, it probably would be a better thing if I were elected to do release on their own recognizance. So you don't have individuals sitting in jail on misdemeanor offenses longer than they need to be.
Thank you. And Ms. Jones.
And I guess I disagree with both of them. I think cash bails, that erodes public trust. It makes it look like people with money can buy their way out of jail. And I think because there are other mechanisms for being released, either signing yourself out or your own recognizance, property bonds, or bail bond, those seem to be more fair, so that if I'm a person who is of means and what I need to do is pay the money to get out of the jail, that's inconsistent and unfair to other people who don't have those means. So as far as the public is concerned, and if we're trying to rebuild public trust, we need to do it in a way that it's equal for everybody and that you can't buy your way out.
Thank you. And consistent with the subject of public trust, recidivism is a persistent challenge. How would you work with schools, nonprofits, or the faith community or other organizations to help address the root causes of crime to reduce recidivism? And we'll start with you, Mr. Adebamaji.
Well, the way I will work with groups is, like I said earlier, I believe that they say an idle hand is the workshop of the devil, not only an idle mind. But if someone was arrested and then you put him on probation, the judges do this by giving them things to do. You know, sometimes they give them a list, and among those lists is that, number one, you must be fully gainfully employed. If you're not fully gainfully employed, then you must be enrolled in school full-time. And if you're not enrolled in school, you must be doing something to show that you occupied and you're not committing crime. So, and some of these people, once they put them on that probation and they give them all these things to do, and some of them also, they also require for them to do community service. While you're doing community service, you may find a way by which you can rehabilitate yourself, because some of them go to do community service and they end up being employed over there. So I will talk to communities and I will talk to businesses to see if they can hire some of these people. Because even those who are in prison, you have what they call work release, where they will release you from jail and you will go to work, and when you finish your work, you come back to jail. I think those kind of systems are laudable, and I think we should engage in those.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
One of the things that I would like to stress is that judges are limited by judicial canons. A lot of things that we say that we can do, judges really can't do. So one of the things we need to look at, to the extent possible, use those community resources. If, for example, with the community service, tailor that community service to the crime that person committed. A lot of times we don't have a lot of options for our offenders to put them back on track. So let's tailor that according to what those problems are. If you have a person who's young and who, just has not been able to obtain employment, perhaps you can put them in a program that's going to allow them to do an apprenticeship, for example, so that they then can become employed. So I'd like to see again, with the Judicial Advisory Council, we have citizens who sit on that council who tell us what resources are available. They can help facilitate, the court with the community for us to know what those resources are.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
I think it all breaks down to presence. Just because you're an elected official doesn't mean you're no longer part of the community. And I think ultimately people need to see that you care, right? They need to see that you're at community events. They need to see that you're speaking with the youth. They need to see that you actually have an active involvement in the school system. As far as removing or decreasing the recidivism rate, unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen in the rate that all of us want to see it. But going to the legislature, having an understanding of what laws disproportionately affect us gives us a better opportunity of building the programs that can help us decrease the rate, get people back working, and keep people out of the criminal justice system for the long haul. Because unfortunately, you're not going to be able to save everybody. But if you have programs that reach 2, 3, 5, 6 people, and people see that you care by being present, you can save more than are going back.
Thank you. And I always hate to do this to y'all as a former candidate, but just sort of as a rapid response, maybe 15 seconds, no more. Do you believe that your job on the, if elected to the 19th JDC, is to help reduce recidivism? Mr. Adebamiji.
I believe so. I believe that's part of my job. And that would depend on my experience and what I've seen, because like I said, experience is the best teacher. If you cannot apply it, then you've wasted your time. So yes, I believe so.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
I understand sentencing is a function of the judge, but too often we're rushing to crime and punishment. I do think that if you engage the public and you are giving them an opportunity, an alternative opportunity, you can decrease the recidivism rate one person at a time.
Thank you. And Ms. Jones.
And I agree. I think the judge's role as far as recidivism is concerned is how you sentence people. Look at the crimes they've committed, and you want to give them encouragement and give them the incentive not to repeat those crimes. So you have to balance what sentence you impose with what your ultimate goal is with that person.
Thank you. And to close out our section on community engagement, and to sort of reference some of the organizations and partnerships that you all mentioned as we talked about reducing recidivism and how you can sort of build trust. How do you balance those community-facing efforts that you all have proposed with the need to remain impartial on the bench? And I'll add even another layer to that. How do you remain impartial on the bench, or at least give the impression of impartiality on the bench with those relationships, with donors, with other political relationships that you've built? How do you maintain that sense of impartiality on the bench after this election when you have these partnerships with community leaders and community groups? We'll start with you, Ms. Jones.
I think as far as the partnerships are concerned, it's not a partnership with the court, with a particular judge. That's going to have to be court-wide. I can't have a special relationship with somebody in the community. And for me, it's more than just giving the appearance of being impartial. Judges have to be impartial, but that goes back to how we have eroded away the public trust in our judiciary. So the only way to do that is you have to draw that line, and as far as it's not going to be an individual judge's relationship with a program. It's the court's relationship with that program. But most certainly, and you're also you're governed by judicial canons. Our judicial canons are very specific as to what you can and can't do and what your relationship could be to individuals, even with the donors that you're talking about. Our canons govern that, and we have to follow those canons and be held accountable to doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Very quickly, I think judicial canons and ethics aside, you have to treat each individual like a human being, and you have to give that individual the awareness and the access to whatever programs that you could be involved in, one individual at a time. If I'm giving person A the same opportunities I'm giving person B, depending upon what their particular bill of information or crime that they've been charged with says, then I'm being fair and impartial. If I'm ensuring that I'm being consistent with my sentencing practices, for example, I'm charging X crime this way and sentencing X crime this way, or I'm giving this particular type of crime this type of probation. If I'm fair and balanced across the board and I'm consistent with how I rule on things and sentence, then I believe that is a way of being fair and impartial as well.
Thank you. Mr. Adebamiji.
Well, I think what you're asking for is how can a judge be impartial, even though you're dealing with the community and with some organizations. You can deal with some organizations and you show transparency. If you show transparency, that because you're doing this because of the benefit of the community, I don't see anything that is wrong with it. Just because you're a judge doesn't mean you have to detach from the community you live in. Okay, if you go out after you leave your bench, you're still going to walk into the same community. If you don't treat that community right, why are you expecting that community to treat you right? You can't say just because you are a judge, you will not be involved because people will say you're partial. But what you're doing with those businesses like the food bank or other organization is that you're giving those who needed the opportunity to rebuild their life. And if you do it and you handle it the way the law say handle it, I don't believe that you will have problem. Because I know many judges who engage in these community activities, and I think they're doing the community a big favor.
Thank you. We will move on to the section on case management and fairness. This will be a fairly short section, and then we'll finally close out the prepared questions on experience and perspective. But on case management and fairness, district court dockets are often backlogged. How would you manage your courtroom to ensure both efficiency and fairness? And we'll start with you, Mr. Adebamiji.
Well, if you've been in India, you can see, especially depending on which one you're on. If it's like city courts where they do both, sometimes they have their duty days and sometimes they have their criminal bench. Some people, depending on how many cases they set in a day, and some judges, they will set certain numbers of a case in a day, but some of them will have their docket very short. So for me, if I'm elected the judge, all I have to do is make sure that my docket is moved according to the way it should be moved. And I know sometimes we lawyers, we ask for a lot of continuances. But if I'm representing your child and that continuance favors your child, you have no problem about it. So sometimes we got to understand that some of these cases will be backlogged because sometimes you're going to have some evidence which have not been provided because of technology. And sometimes you have some cases where the lawyers ask for too many continuances. I think the judge will need to learn when to put his or her foot down to say enough of continuances. It's either we try this case or we dismiss it. So I believe that that's the way I will handle my own docket.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
Yeah. One of the things that, I would like to impose on the bench is like a staggered start time. The one thing that I've always hated as an attorney is to get to court at 9 o'clock and then my case is not called into the afternoon. Well, there are some things that we can do to control that by putting certain things at a different time. We can have motions, at a particular time, trials at a different time, arraignments at a different time. I would suggest, for me, it would be let's get rid of the preliminary things early. Those things that are going to take a short amount of time, fill your docket with that in the morning. Take the more complex, maybe motions and hearings in the afternoon so that you are courteous to the attorneys that are there, that you're not sitting there all day waiting for your case to be called. So it's about, for me, it's about docket management. Manage your docket, and you have to put in the time. I mean, I can't very well expect to be out of court by 12 o'clock if I have a 100-case backlog. You have to work through that.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
I think in the beginning, we need to start with bail. If there are individuals who are in on petty misdemeanors, criminal negligence, criminal trespass, vagrancy, misdemeanor theft, get them out of jail, right? Give them or release them on their own recognizance, allow them to sign themselves out. The next issue goes a little bit deeper into the process or the billing process or how you're charged with a crime. And I would have a conversation with the district attorney and the prosecutors and defense counsel in my section, typically the public defenders and or private counsel that are there, to get an understanding about what cases are taking up the majority of the docket and what cases you're actually billing, and don't bill it unless you plan on trying it. If the evidence doesn't line up, let's go ahead and nip this in the bud right now so that we don't have people languishing in jail. And also understanding that we need to go ahead and set quick turnaround dates. And so if I'm at an arraignment, 60 days later, I'm at a motions hearing, another 120 days later, I'm at a trial setting. And that may be the first trial setting, there may be another continuance. Making sure that people are prepared, ready to roll, and not filing bills of information or instituting prosecution on cases that they're not going to try and that people need to be out of jail on is going to significantly decrease the docket.
Thank you. Mr. Adebamiji.
Well, I've answered it the first time, but what I'm saying is that if that's my docket, what I will do is, number one, I've asked for continuance, and I've gotten continuances on some cases before, but if a case keeps being continued, and sometimes you say that it's getting too long, 1, 2 years, some judges don't allow more than 2 years, some judges 3 years, I will make the call. It's either you dismiss this case or you try this case if you want to try it. Because some cases lag behind because there's no evidence by the state to prosecute this case. So instead of dismissing it, they're trying to force the defendant to take a plea or do something else. In those kind of situations, I will try very hard not to allow it unless there is something very particular that is disturbing that case. So managing my docket will be what I will put my foot down on. If I say you have to try the case because it's been continued so many times, because somebody is in jail and you continue a case so many times, I will make sure that I follow through.
Thank you. And a little bit of a loaded question, because I'm going to combine two of them, but hopefully you all will forgive me for that. We talked a little bit about the discretion in sentencing and alternatives to jail, but I want to hone in a little bit more on sentencing, where somebody is going to go to jail. What principles will guide you in sentencing, especially in cases where the individual poses little danger but faces significant consequences? And on top of that, if you are dealing with somebody that might be before your court, first time, second time, how do you balance accountability with second chances? We'll start with you, Mr. Adebamiji.
Well, let's take the first part of the question, okay? I know it's a loaded question and stacked on each other, but, if the first person has a low chance of committing another crime, but he will have greater consequences, but his record is not bad, look, luckily the law allows for each defendant to have what we call PSI, which is pre-sentencing investigation. Before somebody can come in front of you, you've already assigned him for somebody to look into his background, how he grew up, what he was doing before he was arrested, and to look at his record if he's a repeat offender. So if that was his first time and his record speaks well for him, instead of throwing him in jail, you can give him a second chance. You can rehabilitate those people by sending them to go to vocational school, get their GED, and then set some guidelines for them. On the other hand, if the defendant is well known to be a repeat offender, has committed crime 1, 2, 3 times, it has become a habit, it's no longer a mistake, well, he need a cooling time period. You can send him to jail. Maybe if he is in jail, he will learn his lesson. Look, it's not a bad thing sometimes to put some people in jail. Because why? Because they are a threat to the community. They need a cooling off time, so you can send those ones to jail. Whereas those with the misdemeanor and those who pose less risk, you can rehabilitate them with sentencing.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
I think the primary focus should be on public safety. When you look at the person, when they come before you for sentencing, we have to start looking at their records, look at their complete records. History has a way of repeating itself unless something is done to intervene. So if you have someone who's been before your court more than one time for the same thing, we have to get to the root of that. But the primary focus should be on public safety. I often say that people, just because you commit a crime doesn't make you a criminal, because we shouldn't be judging people by their worst day. So you look at the individual. I always say, don't look at the charge, look at the person. Look at that person, not necessarily the charge, because multiple misdemeanor offenses is, to me, just as much a problem as one felony, felony charge. So it can't just be, oh, we look at the person and consider whether or not they've committed felonies. Petty crimes are also just as bad because they have victims. And so when you think about the community as a whole, that should play into how sentencing works. Look at their record. As Mr. Adebamaji said, we have PSIs. So that's where the probation department takes a look at what your criminal history is. Once I have that in hand, that should guide how sentencing works.
Thank you. And Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Moderator, I want to ask you to kind of repeat that question
Okay.
because it was a bit
Okay.
voluminous.
I've been accused of that before. What principles would guide you in sentencing, especially in cases where the individual poses little danger but faces significant consequences? And on top of that, how do you balance accountability with second chances?
So accountability means that you are held responsible for your actions. The flip side of that is, as I've stated earlier, if you know to a point, and when you read, and both of my opponents have said this about the rap sheet before, but when you read someone's rap sheet, and I hate to do this because it reduces an individual to a piece of paper, but when you read someone's rap sheet, you see what the gradations of crimes or offenses they have been arrested for are. And then you can make somewhat of a logical determination as to why their motives are what they are. So like I said earlier, if you're stealing continuously from Walmart because you have to eat, it's much different than stealing electronics to engage in enterprise. And so, yes, I do believe that the public safety is paramount. And I understand that people want to feel comfortable as they're walking down the streets and in their own homes. And again, violent offenders are in a different category all to themselves because the victims bear the brunt and bear the marks of their actions. But I think ultimately we have to make sure that individuals who can get a second chance get that second chance. And they're pushed to a lot of the programs that we have at the 19th JDC already in order to make a fresh start as they get back into the world and hopefully not come back there again.
Thank you. And now we will move on to our last prepared questions category, and this one should be a little bit easier since it's just about you all as people. Our final category of questions asks candidates to reflect on their personal and professional experiences and what they would bring to the bench. Our first question, which I will start with you, Mr. Thomas, what experiences from your legal career have prepared you to serve as a judge on the 19th JDC?
I had the pleasure of serving under two criminal district court judges, one here in Baton Rouge and the other in New Orleans. I got a top-down understanding of how the administration of the courthouse works. I understood the system. I understood the wonderful and complex and necessary relationship between the judges' offices and the clerk's office. And I got a firsthand understanding as to how PSIs, how negotiated pleas, and how the bail, bond, and commissioners' courts and all of the other specialty courts work. From that perspective, I've also been able to draft the opinions of judges that I've worked under. So I understand the legal and scholastic aspects of that as well. So administratively and scholastically, I've seen it from all angles. I've been a prosecutor, I've been a public defender and private defense counsel, and I've worked behind the scenes for judges and seen just how the nature between all of those particular organizations at the courthouse works, which makes me uniquely suited for this.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
I would have to rely on my experience. I mean, after 33 years of practicing law at every level, I've seen almost every kind of case. When I started my career, I started as a law clerk for Bonnie Jackson, which was an invaluable experience because I got to see the courtroom from the other side. So if you couple that with the experience of actually being and getting my experience in the court where I will be residing, then that to me is what I'm bringing uniquely to the bench. And I think what each judge has to have is knowledge of the law. You couple that with the experience. You couple that with life lessons. And a lot of that only comes from living and from being in the system for a given period of time. Once you're there in the courtroom, you experience what it's like to be on the other side. Now you know as a judge the things that you are looking for. I mean, I know what, issues that I have faced as an attorney, and I want to ensure that I'm not doing the same thing once I take the bench. Keep that connection. Don't forget, what your history is. Don't forget what your experiences have been when you go to the bench. And you try to address those concerns.
I wish I'd known what your answer was going to be before. That was a good segue to the next one, but I have to go to Mr. Adebamaji first.
Oh, well, like I've always said and I've repeated it, you can never teach experience, okay? I started out from law school working with legal services. I don't know how many people know legal aid here. I worked in legal aid for some time. It allows me to know people. It allows me to meet people. It allows me to know that, those who do not have money, how they operate in court. And I'm proud to tell you that whenever I sign my name to your petition or to your case, even though I was working for legal aid, my client will get the best representation that even money can buy. And I also work as an arbitrator in city court. There's a particular judge that allowed me to do her docket a lot. It gave me experience to look into sitting as an arbitrator in city court. And, and I also, because of my practice of over 33 years, I've always been a defense counsel. I've never been a prosecutor all my life. So as a defense counsel, it allowed me to see these people we call criminals. It allowed me to see them as human beings. Because what? They're the one who pay me, and they're the one who allow me. Sometimes they don't finish paying me, but I see them as human beings. People you can talk to, and you can find out that these people are not criminal most of the time, but they are intelligent. And judges should be as a referee. I've seen most judges, you act like a referee. Yours is to decide the case. You don't have to be on one side or the other. And also, most judges that I know, they give back to their community. I know a judge who referees. He referees games. And every money he makes from refereeing a game, because I coach soccer, he will give the money to a high school. That's part of reaching out to your community. You cannot be on the bench alone. You have to get out into your community. Coach soccer, coach basketball, do something for your community.
Thank you, and my condolences for those unfulfilled invoices. My next question is a good segue from some of the things that you all mentioned, which is outside of practicing law. What other jobs or experiences do you bring to the 19th JDC that in particular inform your perspective on fairness and leadership? I'll start with you, Mr. Thomas.
So lived experience. I have the uniquely unfortunate experience of having been a survivor of violent crime on these Baton Rouge city streets. In 2008, I was still in law school. I was downtown, and I got into a fight and got stabbed 4 times. And so when I talk about 360-degree perspective on advocacy, on face, it comes with understanding how the victims that come or that would come in front of me feel. Because I understand that pain and that loss. I understood what it meant when somebody had to call my mother at 2 o'clock in the morning and she had to fly from Dallas to meet up with my family at Baton Rouge General. I understand from the perspective of the parent who's trying to understand why that's happened to their child. And I can uniquely understand and empathize with people when they come, or if they would come in front of me for that very reason. On the other hand, I've also seen just the joy of parents and children when I've been able to dismiss a case, right? And I saw how that particular action changed their life. Or when somebody's come home from a long stint in prison, because when you come home while you're in prison, your bench warrants and your fines and your fees are still accruing. And I've had the distinct pleasure of being able to push a button and make someone able to go ahead and get their TWIC card and then reinsert themselves back into society. And so I've seen it from a 360-degree perspective, which makes me very uniquely qualified for this particular position.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
I think, as I understood your question, it's what I've done
Outside of the law.
outside of the courtroom.
Yes.
So prior to going to law school, I was a social worker in Texas. So it afforded me the opportunity to go to court and to see just how important, courts are, but from a different perspective. I tell the story of when I was younger, I had the opportunity to attend court with my grandmother. And that's where that's where my love of the law came from. I actually got to see a case unfold that involved a family member, so I got to see the legal aspect of it and the interpersonal aspect of it, and then had the opportunity to meet the judge. Aside from that, I've always judged moot court teams, and I enjoy teaching. Now I teach at the law center. So I enjoy teaching students about the law, and that gives me a unique perspective once I take the bench. So I had the refresher of, because I teach bar prep. So I teach all 9 sections of the bar to students in law school. So that gives me the additional knowledge of the law coupled with the experience that I've had. So I had those experiences outside of the law.
Thank you. Mr. Adebamji.
Well, my experience outside the law is I was a journalist before I went to law school. I was a writer. I love to write. I wrote a lot of poetries, and you know, writing was my biggest thing. I love it, and it, you know, it segued me into the practice of law, and it gave me those experiences. And then the experience I got there, reporting people and writing about people and their behavior, people and their culture, that gave me the opportunity to know people. It gave me the opportunity to be able to relate to people. It gave me the opportunity to know that, you know, we all have fingers, but they're not all equal. So we all are human beings, but we're not equally talented. So it allows me to be able to, you know when to say yes to somebody and when to say no to someone. So that experience carried into the practice of law and all the way working with legal services. I love to help people. It's second nature anyway. So if you work in legal services, at that time my yearly salary was $26,000. So let me tell you that, working for legal aid. But the experience of meeting people and be able to bring smiles to people's face, you know, gives me joy. And I love doing that all the time.
Thank you. And our last prepared question. What would you want an ordinary citizen here in Baton Rouge who's never stepped foot in the courtroom to know about how you would treat them if they did have to appear before you? And we'll start with you, Ms. Jones.
The thing I want them to know is I have one son. I'm the mother of one son, and I would want them to know that I am going to treat them just like I would want my family to be treated. I will treat people that come before my court the same way. I mean, I look at my son, and, you know, God forbid he's ever in court, but I would want him to be treated with dignity and respect, and I offer that to members of the community. That's the one thing you will get.
Thank you. Mr. Adebamji.
Well, you know, I believe that judges should be very temperamental, okay? And you should be a good listener also. So, because sometimes if you rush to judgment, you will miss the final point of what the individuals are telling you or wants to tell you. So I believe if people come before me, I want them to know that I know that they're human, and I know that they, you know, they deserve respect. Because I know what it is when people don't respect you. I know what it is when people discriminate against you. Come ask me, I can tell you. So I want people who come before me not to have those kind of, you know, those kind of premises. I don't want them to tremble. I don't want you to be scared. I want you to know that the judge is there to act as a referee, and the judge is there to let you know what you've done wrong and what the consequences will be. They will be treated with respect, because you know, if you can't say because somebody committed a crime, you deny him his dignity. That's what he has. So anybody who comes in front of me, I will make sure that you know, I'm not partial to either one of them, and I respect them, and I give them the opportunity to state their case.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
I would say that if elected, anyone who comes before me would see an accurate reflection of somebody who's been in their community, who's worked the jobs that they've worked. I worked as a night auditor for the Crown Plaza Hotel. I worked in Cortana Mall in retail. I've seen just how valuable people's time is. I understand that when you are coming into the courthouse, you are oftentimes confused as to where to go. You are oftentimes unsure of the process, and you're unaware as to how the overall effects could hurt your family going forward. I would let people know that I genuinely care about making sure that you are put in the best position to receive the best possible outcome. And that's defendants in a criminal case, that's victims in a criminal case, that's plaintiffs in a civil case, that's defendants in a civil case. And I would let you know that, bottom line, I'm going to make sure that the process is open. I will be accessible to your attorneys. I will make sure that the process is observed and protected, and that you will know that you will have a fair shake anytime you come in front of me. And that goes for your family, your friends, regardless of race, creed, color, or socioeconomic status.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. To everyone in attendance and online, I'm Johnny Jones, and I'm here to provide the candidates with the questions from our online audience and our audience that's in the building. First question to all of the candidates, starting with you, Ms. Jones. What will the candidates do about holding police accountable for abuse of power and battery of citizens? Are they willing to hold them as accountable as the citizens are held?
Oh, absolutely. But, that will all start with the district attorney's office. A judge is not going to be involved in that process until something else happens with that police officer. So although I may see something happen, I can't do anything about it until that case comes before me. But as a defendant before me, that police officer is just like anybody else. I mean, in fact, he's probably held to a higher standard because we put our public trust in police officers. So when they come to court, I'm not going to be the person that says, oh, we're just going to give them a slap on the wrist because they're a police officer. I'm going to do just the opposite. You hold them to a higher standard, and you treat them just like you would any other citizen.
Yes, ma'am. You, Mr. Thomas.
That is a very multi-layered question for a lot of reasons. While I do agree that police officers are held to a higher standard, I also understand that because you're held to that higher standard, when you commit a crime or you're alleged to have committed a crime, the injury to the public is twofold, not just to the individual that you hurt, but also to the public trust. If ever there was a time you needed to be fair and impartial, it's right there. If ever there was a time you would need to divorce your own feelings about a particular scenario from a situation, from a case, it's right there. I would lean again on being consistent, and I've said this a bunch of times. The tenets of what I believe a good judge are compassion, experience, and consistency. And in that particular situation, you have to be consistent. You have to look at all the facts and circumstances without being jaded by the subjectivity of the media. You have to keep yourself away from having an unconscious bias toward that particular individual, and you need to make sure that you are operating in the same fairness, regardless of how people feel about it, when that matter comes before you. And there will be, as I've seen in my time in the 19th JDC, several situations like that where you're going to be tested.
You, Mr. Adebaminja.
I believe the police too should be held accountable for what they do. And also, look, the police lie too. We just got to face it. Okay, I'm sorry I don't have any way I can tell it to you. The police do lie. So you have to put that into consideration also. There's no reason, if you know that a policeman is lying, there's no reason for you to be a coward and not to be able to hold that policeman accountable for those lies. I've seen a judge, which I know pretty well, that if a policeman fails to come into her courtroom, she will dismiss the case, or she will force the prosecutor to go on ahead with the case. Oh, that's pretty good. And then sometimes, she issue a rule to show cause, or come tell me why you didn't come to court. I think that's how judges should be. You should be bold enough to apply the law. You should be bold enough to do what the law requires you to do.
Thank you. Our next online question reads as such. Two of the candidates have run for judge on several occasions. What would you tell your constituents now relative to why you are now the better candidate for this judgeship? We start with you, Mr. Adebaminja.
Well, yes, I've been around the block a couple of times. Okay.
That was as honest as you could possibly get.
Yeah, as much as kind. But
that question was for you.
Okay.
For me, all those things when I ran before, I ran against some pretty good people, and they became judge. I can tell you some of them became some of my best friends. I met people while I was running around, and I learned where I made mistakes and where I made errors. It's not because of experience, and it's not because I do not know the law, and it's not because I cannot do this job, but for other reasons. Look, I can't blame them because of that, but I just know that my accent is in my mouth, it's not in my brain, okay? I might be born in Africa, but I've been existing in this community for 40 years, and I know what I'm doing. If not, I won't be here today. So I think I will be a better judge because of the experience I've learned, the friendship I've made along the way, and I want to say some of the errors I made along the way on how to run a campaign. So I think I'll be a better judge this time around because I'm well-versed.
Okay, Mr.
I'm gonna let her go on that one.
I'm the only other person.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
running.
because I haven't run for an office.
I'm the only other person that's run for judge before.
Okay, on you,
But-
Ms. Jones.
And I will say this. I mean, first and foremost, I truly believe that what God has for me is for me. When I ran the last time, I got invaluable experiences about people, and that was critical for me. So although I didn't win that election, I still came out a winner because of the experiences that I had with other people. And the same thing is true now. You know, I tell everybody, I am not a politician by any stretch of the imagination, and that is the one thing that I do not like about how you have to get to the bench. The politics is what I don't like, but it's the people that I love. You know, this time, you know, every time I go out and I talk to somebody and I get their perspective on the bench, I say to myself, from the bench, what can I do in a courtroom that's gonna help them better understand what's going on? Help them better understand, you know, the court process. This has been an opportunity for me to educate people on exactly what happens in the courtroom, and I would not have had that opportunity but for running for judge.
Thank you, thank you. The next question is, Deli has volunteered with young offenders as a coach. Vicky has volunteered with at-risk youth and donated to the Butterfly Society to help disabled victims, or DV victims, I'm sorry.
Domestic violence.
Has Vernon been active in our community? I guess that's to you, Mr. Thomas.
All yours.
All me, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I have been active in the community through my fraternity, through individual service to people, and through my commitment to ensuring that people get the justice that they need. I take several pro bono cases per year, several pro bono cases, and every pro bono case that I take allows an individual to receive competent legal representation. So while I may not be as experienced as the two people sitting right next to me, I've had a deep connection to the community over the 16 years that I have practiced. And that's evident when I speak to people both in here, in the courthouse, on the street, and in the mall. I've only ever endeavored to make sure that people understand that service is number one for me. Not to mention the fact that in the military community, I've also done a significant amount of pro bono work representing soldiers and helping them with a plethora of different legal issues. So yes, I have been in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And the last online question is for Ms. Jones. I understand that Vicky was a registered Republican and changed parties. I would like to know who she voted for in the presidential election.
Okay, I am definitely not gonna, you mean this last presidential election? If that's the question, I can tell you that I did not vote for Donald Trump. But as far as that question as being a Republican, being a Democrat, I think we have resolved that. One of the things I always say is, as a judge, my party affiliation will never come into play. I will never know what party affiliation the defendant is. I won't know what the party affiliation is for the prosecutor. I will never know that. So that won't ever have a role. But as far as being a Republican or being a Democrat, I am a registered Democrat. Out of the 4 candidates in this race, I was endorsed by the Democratic Parish Executive Council. So there is no question about my qualifications and, you know, where I stand. I mean, we all interviewed for that. Everybody went to those interviews. The Democratic Party had the opportunity to endorse either of us, and they chose to endorse me.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. So that will be concluding our online questions and the forum. On behalf of Prophetic Voices and the community, I would like to thank everyone in attendance and viewing online. I pray that this forum has educated you further and helps with your vote on the 19th Judicial Court Judge Division O. Good night. One second.
We got audience questions?
Right.
Give me 1 second, sorry. apologies. That was on me.